Let's go.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is a null, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So if you are just joining us, if you haven't been listening over the past couple of days, we started a segment called Punk Rock Politics. I believe it is trending on Twitter, and by trending, I mean two people have tweeted about it. But Punk Rock Politics is basically us in the run-up to the election trying to talk to as many musicians, entertainers, folks like that about how they feel, how they got to be the way they are, what they believe, and why. And we are unbelievably excited to be joined on the show today by rapper, comedian, self-made entrepreneur, MC Chris. MC Chris, everybody. Yay!
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all.
It's a room full of people.
Yeah. Usually I do like a longer sort of like more dramatic intro, but you do so much that we need every available second
There's
on
no time.
the show.
You're already wasting time.
Yeah, already wasting time. So my question to you is this. How did MC Chris happen? Like this thing that you've become over years of hard work. How? Because it's not like you had a roadmap to follow. It's not like when you started doing this, there were tons of examples of this sort of thing happening. How'd it happen?
There was no one like me for sure. Well, I think it goes back a long way to something in Chicagoland. There was a play or a musical that was going around, a political satire called Rappin' Ronnie, or something that had to do with Ronald Reagan rapping. And I did I love SNL, so I loved impersonating political figures even as a child. And so I would just do Rappin' Ronnie for my mom's bridge club with my synthesizer. You know, I'd hear that boom, 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 and I would start doing it in front of everybody, and it would kill. You know, I'd hook up with one of the ladies and in the laundry room, and then it just kind of. You know, hip-hop was always kind of in the background of my life. I never bought a Beastie Boys tape. I would hear Run DMC and stuff come from, like, neighbors' yards, but it was never in our house. I think I always associated it with metal. And as I got older and it started to come into my life a little bit more, I started to just like fall in love with it. I think I first heard De La Soul and Public Enemy around 1989, and then I just started listening to that stuff repeatedly over and over and over again. I started just rap for fun as a joke, and because it's Chicagoland, of course, John Hughes lives in Chicagoland, and his son lives in Chicagoland and is a rapper and performs at a cafe, and he's dating all the girls in my high school, and everyone's in love with John Hughes Jr. for obvious reasons. He's John Hughes Jr. And he brought me up on stage one day in front of everybody with my friend.
Hold on, wait. John Hughes' kid is responsible for the birth of MC Chris?
Yeah, he was the first one to bring me up on a stage in Waukegan, Illinois. So thank you, John Hughes Jr. And
are you still friends with him?
No. I have not heard or spoken to him since. I assume he is in some kind of lofty perch, very unreachable. But if I could see him or say hi to him or, contact him anyway, I would be like, yeah, you are the beginning. You let me be on stage for like 10 seconds, and I went up there and I rapped with my friend, and that kind of was that might have planted a seed. And so having my car in Libertyville, Illinois, and having all my hip-hop mixtapes...
Just real quick, how old were you the first time you got on stage?
Oh, in the teens, in high school. Okay. But I was just listening to this music over and over and over again, and kind of Karate Kid style, I learned how to rap without even knowing I was in school. And by the time I got to college, I used it as a way to, not be afraid, really. I mean, when I went to college, I transferred from Chicago to New York University, and I was just scared to death. And, so I kind of invented an alter ego to get me through parties. I would rap at parties. I would rap when I was by myself, when I was feeling low and feeling, frankly, suicidal. I didn't want to live anymore because I couldn't handle this feeling of being so small in such a big place. And hip-hop made me feel huge. It made me feel really big. And so I just started rapping all the time, and people liked it.
Very good. More with MC Chris when we get back. MC Chris for the win!
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So our guest on the show today, if you're just joining us, is MC Chris. He is the latest interview in our Punk Rock Politics series where we discuss who people are, what they believe, and how they got that way. MC Chris, in case you did not know, kind of a legendary rapper and also something I really admire, an absolutely self-made man as best as I can tell. And we'll get into all that in a little bit. But let's back up. You got on stage for the first time because you were brought up by John Hughes Jr. at an open mic night. You go to, well, first and foremost, you went to some really prestigious art schools, like the School of Art Institute of Chicago, is that right? And then Tisch School of Arts
I drew.
At NYU?
I was, because I became an animator at Cartoon Network down the road. But I always drew, and I always did kind of everything. I acted, I sang, I drew, I did puppet shows, I made haunted houses, I did all that stuff that a kid does. And I love to draw, and I got accepted to Art Institute immediately. They looked at my portfolio and they put me in there, but I didn't like art school because I didn't think anybody was working hard enough. Everybody was just making piss Christ and putting crucifixes upside down and throwing vomit on it. And I was like, I was more into illustrators like Norman Rockwell and animators like Walt Disney and Don.
You
Bluth
were into
and
people
stuff.
that went to work.
I like people that worked, but truth be told, I went to animation class and I thought, I saw another person in animation class and I was like, wow, that looks like a lot of drawings. I think I was more interested in being an illustrator. I did life drawings and cubism and stuff like that, and that was kind of what I was interested in. But I took a screenwriting class, and it was right around the time when Tarantino in the 90s, it was just like a really great time for independent film. So I just fell in love with film, writing film, took a screenwriting class, thought, this is what I really want to do, and I transferred to a really good film school, NYU.
Yes. Yeah, very impressive. Well, the Tisch School of Arts at NYU, right?
Yeah, and I was in the dramatic writing program, and that's what my major was.
Like, just so we're clear, I went to I did the International Baccalaureate Art Program when I was in school, and all the kids that were in it were serious artists and were going to art school and trying to get into art school and submitting their portfolios. Me, not so much. I was like, art's for people that want to be poor. Instead, I'm going to do music. That's a sure thing. But like the kids that were applying, like the names of these institutions that you got into, lickety split, School of Art Institute of Chicago and the Tisch School of Arts in New York City. These are used in hallowed and hushed tones. You must have,
I read
you're extremely talented, is what I'm saying.
I read an article in Rolling Stone that said, you're not going to the best art school. This is the best art school. And that was it. Rolling Stone is like, NYU's the best, and School of the Art Institute is like second best. And I was like, well, I just, for some reason I had to have the best, even though I got there and wasn't really willing to do everything they wanted me to do. But it was still, really the great thing about New York is New York. So I got to go and live in this amazing city. And what happened to me is that I fell in with a bunch of kids that love punk music, and I followed them around.
Where were you living in New York? Because I'm from New York, and I might know some of. Like,
I lived
were you hanging
in
out with the New York
locations. Multiple locations. My first place was in Washington Square on the 11th floor with a window looking out on the park.
Nice.
So that was pretty nice. But it became all different kinds of things. They put me in a dorm on 5th. They put me in a hotel right across from Penn Station, and then I moved to my own place, which was in Soho. But I've lived in almost every borough of
New York.
Yeah.
Right. Did you like you being an artist and being in New York City in I'm guessing like late 90s sort of time? Did you fall in with like the graffiti crowd and stuff like
not
the
at all
folks
not at all. It's all Richie's because NYU is a very expensive school, so I mean it wasn't like street art wasn't a big thing yet, and even New York was kind of shedding a lot of its old New York. It was kind of becoming that Giuliani Disney New York when we were there. And so it was kind of cleaning up its act. But I liked these guys that played punk music, and I followed them around, and they taught me so many things that I use now in my life, just about stage presence and promoting and
which bands?
Not a lot you'd heard of, but like Dirtbike Annie was like the main one, which is a pop punk band. There's a whole genre of music called pop New York City pop punk or tri-state pop punk. And all these different bands were kind of in this collective, and they would do house shows together, and we'd all go to each other's shows. And I was always videotaping, drawing flyers for everybody, drawing album covers, making stickers. I was basically kind of like a groupie, just kind of hovering around a scene. But by hovering around, I picked up so many different things about, how you like make music and perform it, and how do you get people to go to a show, and all these basic concepts were all introduced to me through these bands. And they would jam, and I would get on the mic, when they were jamming, and then it kind of melted into each other, and before you knew it, I was like rapping with a punk band supporting me at house shows, and I was doing that all the time.
So awesome. So this is to the two people from New York City that know what I'm talking about, this will be gold. It's going to alienate the other 98% of the audience. But do you remember the bands at the time in New York City were bands sort of like the hardcore scene that I was in was sort of like bands like Burn and Orange 9mm. And do you remember, was it sort of part of that? No, pop punk is it's a lot less like Sex Pistols and a lot more like the Ramones, meaning it has one foot in like 50s pop songwriting. And 2 minute 30-second songs, like the same chords, like almost every song is exactly the same, and they're all about how some girl broke their heart. And so like every song was exactly the same, but it was all just tiny variations of it, and it was really kind of interesting to see, and something that I definitely fell in love with. And so I listened to all these bands that were on the Lookout label, like Green Day and NoFX and all that stuff, which is kind of influencing me in a big way. Sure, absolutely. More from MC Chris when we get back. Thank you so much for joining us. Money making, skills on the mic, can be played every day, and we're part of the battle, just battle down, better act if you know.
Always fair and mentally unbalanced. KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land.
All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
When the Summer Brothers, no sign of Santa, for the Hathaway Helpers had abandoned Amanda while repeatedly raped in a cage full of crazies. A fearsome foe was forged from the fires of Hades. The bastard bounce baby of 10,000 maniacs, maybe. Wasn't born to be a brainiac, sadist and draining. Killed a hamster with a hammer, what path and behavior? Wait until later, when he's relishing rager. Kruger was a cutter, kinda like Kylo. Always sort of psycho, indigoes of Michael. Daily bits of beatings made him a partial to pain, but his father got the furnace soon he suffered the same. Mother was another, now none in the habit. Never knew her, pursued her, just managed to sadness. Trap out the bird, veteran up outside of the picture. Puts a sweater forever, and the fedora's a fixture. 1, 2's come for you, 3, 4, better shut your door. 5, 6, grab your groups of things. Slash your flicks, how I get my kicks. A jovial dancer, beneath the city's house. Freddie Zed, MC Chris, off of the new album, MC Chris is Dreaming, which is out, the 30th of September?
Sir. Yes.
And the 10 years of touring tour kicks off on the 29th of September. It's all about to happen for you.
I know. I have 1 week left with my family before I'm gone until Christmas.
It brings up an interesting question. You started doing a 10 years of touring tour. You've been on the road for the past 10 years. And I want to get a little bit more into your background. But for now, how long you been married and how long you had a kid?
We have been married 3 years, and we've had a kid for a year and a half.
So it's a new dynamic of going on the road with a family at home.
Yeah. It's really difficult. I think that it's weird because he changes so much every day. So if you're gone for like a 2-month period of time, you basically have to reintroduce yourself when you come back, and you have to earn his affections again. And because it's happened to me once already. But he warms up to me, and it takes him a second, but it's really weird, and it's kind of sad too. But we see each other with Skype, and I make little movies for him, and I post all the time, and my wife shows him the posts that I would make on YouTube and stuff, so he sees my face. But hats off to my wife. It's really difficult to have a child. I didn't know this at all. It's really it's close to impossible. I don't know. I see people with 4 kids, 5 kids. When I grew up, families would have 10 kids. I have no idea how that happened. We have 1 kid, and we both look like Yahoo Serious. We're all cracked out. We're exhausted. We can barely talk. We're basically pushed to our limits, and I'm still making an album and rehearsing and getting the websites ready and getting the album ready and the tour ready, and it's kind of hellish right now. Yeah, it's kind of hellish.
A lot. And your sort of cycle, how like the album tour, like what would you say, about 2 years, year and a half between albums? You see, a very prolific individual. You put out
I put
a
out
lot.
something every year except for the year my father died, and I think I just put out like a 4-song thing that year. I still had to put something out, but I try to put something out every year. And then I took a year off last year to move to LA and to have the baby. So I'll take some time off if there's like a personal reason, but I really am hitting it at all times, mainly because it's my job, and if I don't go to work, I don't make money.
Sure, right, absolutely. What does your wife do?
My wife just chases him around and feeds him nonstop, and
So could you bring the wife and kid on the road with you?
I could. I travel in a very lo-fi way. We're, in a minivan, not a tour bus. And tour life is, it's not great. You're in like hotels that are frequented by ladies of the evening and like I stay at like Motel 6s and Super 8s and the food you eat is mainly from gas stations, and it's kind of a hellish life, but you get used to what happens every day and it becomes less of a shock to the system. But if you have a family that's like a whole nother layer of
other dynamic,
stress, and it's hard to like keep them happy, but also keep the hundreds of people that are in the room that night happy, and I also do meet and greets where I see every fan after the show, whoever wants to say hello and get a picture or get something signed. I'm there for like an hour after every show saying hi to everybody, and so they'd be asleep. There's really not a lot of point. There's not a big point to it. I think it would just wear us out, and we're already pretty wore out. So
right. Well, I mean, it also begs an interesting question. You are, and this is one of the things I love about you so much. You are self-made. You're a self-made individual because, like I said, when we started this chat, there was no roadmap for making an MC Chris when you started doing this. Now, I suppose there might be a little bit of something. Like if you want to do something in music, if you're a good-looking teenager with a bunch of good songs, or if you're a rock band that can fill a room full of people and all that sort of thing, there's a bit of a roadmap to follow. Now there's this idea that you put stuff on YouTube and you build your Twitter following, and you have there is sort of like a guide as to how one does what you're doing, especially if you're in a band. But when you were starting out, zip, zing, nothing. What even do you think gave you? Because you left.
Well,
like
I can't say that I was totally self-made. I mean, I did have help from a major corporation in Time Warner and Cartoon Network, and they put my website in the credits of the cartoons that I worked on for Adult Swim, and that happened like a week or two after Adult Swim premiered, which happened a week before 9/11. And so I just basically kids got the album for free based on a website that was put in the credits of a cartoon that would play at like midnight on Sunday, and that really started a huge thing that is still going today, and people are always getting this music, and so it's just how I make a living, but it's definitely something that I got a boost that nobody else in my genre has, or I was very lucky to have that boost. But, like I said before, I went to art school for drawing, and I had a lot of different skills, and so Adult Swim just put that to use, and they hooked me up in return.
Well, and also you seem like the type of person who, look, you looked up in Rolling Stone magazine, these are the best art schools. Okay, those are the ones that I want to go to. Got there, went, not really into this. I feel like I know better. Like, I mean, you seem to have a self-possession that drives people like you to have the audacity to be like, I'm going to be MC Chris. I'm going to write rap songs about things like Star Wars and video games, and it's going to work, and I'm going to be able to support a wife and a kid doing it.
I had no idea.
Sounds insane.
I had no idea that any of it was going to work. I just knew that I was doing stuff that I loved. I love Star Wars. I love hip hop. And like I was a performer at Upright Citizens Brigade Theater when I was discovered by Adult Swim, and so they kind of plucked me out of that already great environment. A lot of those people have moved on, like Childish Gambino and all the people that you see in comedy today, Ellie Kemper, they all come from that theater that I was a part of. And I got plucked out of that and put into Adult Swim, and then I was at Adult Swim, and then Good Charlotte rolled up, and they plucked me out of Adult Swim, and they said, you're going to be this big thing. And that wasn't necessarily true, but it definitely it kind of created a vision in my mind where it was like, okay, they can't exactly help me do what I want to do, but maybe I can pull this off on my own. And we were able to do it. Our live shows did really well in the beginning, and they were all sold out. And the problem really was like, can we make merch fast enough? Can we put out albums fast enough while everybody's interested in this? And thankfully, it's 10 years later, and everyone's still interested.
It's what. What do you suppose is the reason for that? Because rappers in particular have notoriously short careers. Your rap audience is not necessarily like a traditional one. But for people to maintain interest for a period of a decade and still come to shows and still buy T-shirts and still, it says to me that you've managed to create a real connection with your audience.
Well, I think not being dropped from a label has a lot to do with it. Never being signed to a label means that I always kind of decided what every album was like. I could have skits on it that were maybe too long. I could write songs that weren't going to be hits. I could write songs about subject matter that you wouldn't write a song about. And because I always got to do whatever I wanted, I think people saw themselves in my music because I was just being myself. And because of that, that connection was made. And people have seen my shows like 12 times. People have bought 10 of my T-shirts. I never did anything like that. I saw a band once, maybe bought 1 T-shirts, didn't even know all the names of the guys in the band. People now know everything and are like, seriously into this stuff, way more than I ever was, which is amazing. They collect my shirts like they're Pokemon. And that is just a blessing because, when you make music, especially in this day and age when nobody buys it, you have to come up with some other ideas. Like, okay, well, do I still want to make music? Yes. Well, then you can't make money making music. You have to find another way to do that. So because I'm a nerd, I got to enlist a lot of great artists and comic book artists and stuff to make my shirts and my album covers and stuff. So that stuff has been really important and it's been really cool and we've made a lot of great stuff and fans love that. But people come to the show repeatedly over and over again because the show is always different. I'm always monologuing about something, whether it's like Goonies or Star Wars or a video game or anything that we all just played or that we all have in common, and I'll make jokes about it, and nobody else does that. Nobody else does what I do, and so I'll definitely take pride in the fact that like there's nothing like me. But that also is difficult because sometimes because I'm not a recognizable thing, no one really knows what to do with me. Like I'm not funny enough for the comedy world. I'm not hip hop enough for the hip hop world, and so there's no real place for me. But a lot of people feel like that, so it works out.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because I guess, like, I equate you to folks like maybe Henry Rollins, but like when Henry's talking versus when Henry was playing music were two completely different things, and never the twain will meet. You'll break off from your music and you will talk about whatever it is you're going to talk about on that particular tour, that particular night. I guess, like, we had Jim Brewer on the show right as he was getting ready to launch his sort of like his comedy metal thing, which is really, really good. Like, that guy's got an incredible voice, and they got some real deal musicians to be on the record, and that is kind of similar. But like, I was thinking about this when we were getting ready to talk to you. I was like, I really don't think there's anything or anyone like MC Chris that is doing what he does or even close to it. I mean, can you think of it? Like, you've spawned a herd of imitators, I think.
No, there's a lot of comedy rap now on YouTube. I mean, pretty much it happens so fast, but a lot of it is like disposable, and you don't really ever get to know who's doing the song, or there's no personality there to really attach yourself to, because it's hard to get to know somebody. And I think in this age, unless they're a YouTuber who's making like weekly videos, and then you know too much.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know who.
You know too much.
I don't know I don't know who goes out and tours as much as I do, or puts out an album every year, or who has, like I said, people who are coming back and are repeatedly seeing you over like every year. That's just part of what they do. It's a celebration for them. It's a holiday for them. And a lot of people don't have big cons or comic book conventions that happen in their town. So in a way, like this tour, everyone's going to dress up. There's a costume contest, and NECA Toys is going to give like $500 worth of Freddy toys to whoever wins this contest. So everyone's in costume, and it feels like a nerd convention. It feels like you're with your people, and it feels like a good thing, but you're also the music is supposed to work on anybody, and it's supposed to be fun no matter who you are, if you've heard me before or whatever it is. So we all kind of have a good time, and I think that's why people are coming back year after year.
I think so. You're going to be October 14th in Orlando at the Social, October 6th, Houston at Lola's. If you come in costume, you can win a prize. It's good stuff. So my question for you being the type of self-made entrepreneurial guy, I mean, obviously, as we were discussing, you got a bit of a boost. But when an MC Chris looks at what's going on in the world of politics, where do you suppose we are? We'll hold on to that, and we'll get there next.
No, we still have time.
Okay, I thought you were playing us out.
No, that's just the
All right,
the
once more for dramatic effect,
Yes.
Funkhauser.
That's the sound everyone hears when you hear the word politics.
Yes,
yeah,
Everyone
exactly.
gets in their politics stance.
Yes. Yeah. In your and speaking of political stances, I mean, are you active? Do you vote?
I do vote. I'm very political. MC Chris is not as political as Chris Ward is because I try to keep the stuff fun for everybody, and once you start talking about things, it can upset people. But I think this year has been one of those years where I've said a couple of things, but it's not too overt. We'll see what happens. I might become more overt as the year progresses, given how intense the election is. But I usually try to keep it out of. It's definitely not in my songs, although I should say there are little references here and there throughout over the years if you pay close attention. But it's really not a main focus of the music. But I personally have tons of feelings on every issue.
Sure, yeah. I mean, but talking to musicians is an interesting way to be because, you travel nationally and internationally. And for the rest of us that didn't have the cojones and the vision to make MC Chris's of ourselves, a lot of us are sitting here in this box, working really, really hard every single day. Time has become a luxury as much as money has become a luxury in terms of getting out and experiencing other parts of the world. So I find a lot of us, we're sitting there in our cubicle all day, and we have very narrow view of the world because that's all we have time to have. Now you talk to musicians and entertainers whose job it is to travel and meet people that are living life in a different way. You get some different answers, and you get a different perspective on how the rest of the world stacks up against America. And I'm sure you have some of that. We'll talk about it in just a little bit.
Time I don't like to waste. Get down. I'm a question, rep inside enigma. Get inside a slave one, find your home and signal. From Endor to Hearth, Ripley to Spock. I'll find what you want, but there's gonna be a cost. Say my name is Boba Fett. I know my shit is tight. Start acting right, yo, frozen to carbonite. Got telescopic sight, flamethrowers on my wrist. You still don't get the gist. Spike pizza made a kick. Targets made a hit. You think I give a shit? Your mama is a bitch. I see you in the Sarlacc pit. You just flip my switch. Integrity's been hit. You scratching on my itch. You know I shoot the gear. Got the bean and secatinas way to lick my lusty lips. So I'll let you get back inside your little spaceship. Give you a head start, cause I'm a sporting card. Radio! Radio! 104.1!
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is.
The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
Our guest on the show today, the legendary MC Chris, who is about to embark on a new tour. The 10 Years of Touring tour kicks off on the 29th of September. New album, MC Chris is Dreaming, is out September 30th. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yay. So, in your travels, both national and international, political portion of the show has begun. What do you think of where we are at the moment?
Well, the first thing I think of when you put it in that context of touring is I think of the blue tarps that I would see on all the roofs in New Orleans after the flood. And so some of these things I just never... You just don't see what they show you on the news when you're just kind of intensely traveling through the country every year. You really see how things look really bad sometimes, and then like last year you see like help wanted signs in every store. You see really low gas prices and help wanted signs everywhere. And you think, oh, hey, maybe things are like getting better. And so you kind of have this point of view that is something you don't get from the news or from the internet. And it really takes like going into every state and seeing how everyone's doing and looking how either poor or well off everyone is. And there are times, right at the beginning of Obama's presidency where things looked really bad. And then there are times towards the end where things looked like things were shaping up economically. So that you get that kind of perspective. And you also can see fans writing a lot of letters like, I don't have money, I don't have enough money to go see a show, I don't have enough money to buy an album. And that gives you a sense of how everyone's doing. But that's that's the best I can do in terms of what do I get, or what can I take from touring how do I get a sense of how the country's doing. But you definitely see little things, like little clues, like what I was talking about, like the blue tarps or the help wanted signs, stuff where you get a sense of things are going really well or things are not going really well right now. There's some cities that I go to that are very I Am Legend, They're just kind of abandoned. There's nothing going on. There's just Will Smith and his dog, and there's nothing happening in that town. And you see a lot of that. And you don't.
I would imagine the shows you play.
Go ahead.
Oh, go on. No.
I was going to say there's just you see a lot of that, and you're kind of like, what happened here? What went wrong here? What's the matter with this place? Why is this place doing well and another place is like kicking butt?
I would imagine that in those towns where there's very little going on, that your shows are crazy. I mean, people have got to, like, when I used to be in a band, I'll never forget, I think one of the best shows I've ever played was in Houma, Louisiana, where people crawled out of a swamp, some of them without shoes, to file into this school gym that had been turned into a venue. And, like, it was like a real tour with real bands. We were playing theaters and arenas all over the place, and this was the only venue in Houma, Louisiana that existed. It was like a PA set up on the floor and shoeless folks, and we're like, this is going to suck. But it was one of the greatest nights of our lives. Like, I have to imagine those smaller towns have that with less going on.
Oh, I can
you.
have, first thing I think of is Indianapolis, and I play at this place called the Hoosier Dome, which isn't really the Hoosier Dome. It's a tiny little venue, and we sell it out, and it only fills like 200 people or something like that. And it's always, for the past 2 years that we've done it, it's been like my favorite show. Sometimes smaller shows can be so much more fun because everyone's a lot more attentive and they're ready to like kind of receive what you give. Whereas a really big show, it's just kind of like out of control. It's just like a bunch of fire ants like holding on to each other. And, they can just like move one big mob, and before you know it, like the lights have gone out because they've climbed up something that pulled the power out, which happened in Huntsville, Alabama once, I think. The fans just basically destroyed the stage. I think those small shows can be really a lot of fun, and frankly, because I'm a little claustrophobic, I can have a much better time too. But I want big shows though, obviously, because that you're going to make a lot more money that night, and you want to please as many people as you possibly can. So I like those big shows, but the small shows are so great because they're so intimate. The jokes always go so much. They go much more better than better. How would you say it? Betterer. So like
the jokes go over well.
The jokes go over well. Thank you, sir. And that can just be so much more comfortable to be in those small situations. And definitely, I've played every kind of venue you can imagine, from just like being on a bookshelf, like the stage is as big as a bookshelf, I've played in garages, I've played in church basements, I've played at people's houses, I've played giant festivals and giant rooms opening up for other bands and stuff like that. So I've experienced all different kinds of things. But those small little crap shows are oftentimes some of the best shows of the tour, and I never have a problem if we didn't get a lot of people tonight for some reason. I'll be like, that's okay. It's kind of a night off, and it means it'll be a good show. We don't have to stress out too much. But if it's like 500 people, then you're like, okay, this is going to be tough. This is kind of like diving into Saving Private Ryan.
Right. There's a lot of people there.
There's just some guy walking around carrying his arm.
Right. So what's surprising to me is that you are politically active. You do vote. You do feel strongly about these things. And I'll tell you the reason why that surprises me. When I talk to people like you who are self-made, who have managed to navigate the terrain of life under their own steam, I tend to find that folks like you are very sort of independent and who's in office makes no difference to me. I'm going to look after my own self. This is how I roll. So it's surprising to me that you're as politically active and passionate as you are.
I think because my music has been a lot about self-acceptance. So like no matter what you are, it's my music's a lot of it's about like, oh, you thought you were like a bad thing or you shouldn't be on earth because of the way you are. Well, my music is here to tell you that you're not wrong in any way whatsoever, that you're great as is. And there's a lot of people that have experienced difficulties in life because of whatever they are, whether it be their race or their gender, their sexual orientation. All these things can make a lot of people feel really bad, like they're not supposed to be on Earth. And I think because my music has kind of encouraged those people to feel better about themselves and to not really dismiss themselves, I think that it's always important to me that people don't lose their civil liberties and that people continue to have just everything that I have. It's really easy for me to have all the things that I have because I'm white and because I had a nice upbringing. And so a lot of things were delivered to me on a silver platter. Even though you say I'm self-made, there's so many people that help me. There's so many rappers that have gone through hell and high water to get to where they are. And so, the people that have struggled, I understand that, and I don't want you to lose any rights that you've acquired over the years. I want you to be able to get married. I want you to be able to live your life and not worry about getting killed, So I think those are some of the feelings that I have.
Interesting. Sounds like we might be leaning toward a libertarian stance. Can open, worms everywhere. We'll deal with it when we get back.
I guess that I should start by saying that all of this story is true. And even though the names are changing, if you think that it is, the song is probably about you.
Always fair and mentally unbalanced. KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Now, more AD on the radio.
I want candy, bubblegum and taffy. Skip to the sweet chocolate, my sweetheart Sandy. Got my penny face, so I'm a sugar daddy. I'm a Hugh Cronin, she my Jessica Tandy. I want candy. Put it in a pile, split it with my bitty, 50-50 down the line. Kinda like close encounters of the cavity kind. I'm talking licorice, kisses, talking crocodile smiles. I want candy. I got a sugar tooth. Put on your shin guard Sandy, cause I wanna knock boots. Lick a peppermint stick till the lollipop droops. Come drop it, don't stop till it's lit, not loose.
Our guest on the show today, MC Chris. New album, MC Chris is Dreaming, out on the 30th of this month. The tour, 10 years of touring tour, kicks off on the 29th. And we were talking a little bit about what you believe in terms of politics as part of our punk rock politics segment. It seems like you provide, look, you're an inspiration to a lot of folks because you are a guy that is, like, you would argue that you're not self-made. I would say there's you got a leg up in a bunch of different ways, but a lot of people have all that stuff that you're talking about and don't know what to do with it and haven't put in the hard work and haven't put in the grind and haven't been successful.
They haven't smoked all the weed that I have.
Right. And you've built a career off of being yourself, and you're also an inspiration to those that feel like maybe, as you said, they feel like for whatever reason, for the color of their skin, for their gender, their sexuality, or any of the above, feel like they don't belong on this earth. And you're here to say that, yes, you do.
Yes, you do, and you should be able to function just like I do. Your life shouldn't be any more difficult than mine is. And you said right before we went to break, you said, sounds like a libertarian. I feel like that's like like you're a doctor and you just checked my colon. You're like, oh, looks like you're a libertarian.
And it sounded confrontational.
According to what you've just said to me, it sounds. And I'm like, wow, you just took my temperature. I wouldn't say I'm a libertarian. I'm definitely a bleeding heart, annoying liberal. But I see the place for. I think a libertarian by definition means less government. If I'm right. And I think that I don't have a problem with the government. I think we need government. It makes perfect sense to me. I think obviously you have to run the government like any business and run it in the tightest way you possibly can. But at the same time, I like firemen and I like policemen. I like parks. I like dividers on highways. I like nice highways. I like bridges. I like all that stuff the government provides. Right. And rights. I like civil liberties. Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, like, it sounded a scotch confrontational. And the reason I brought it up is because I sort of, I think that
move back a scotch.
I'm moving back a scotch. No, here's the thing. I'm scotching it back a couple of scotches because I tell people sometimes what I believe, which is, hey, look, I kind of believe in letting people be who they want to be as long as they're not hurting anybody else. I got no problem with it. I would like, I believe in taking personal responsibility for my own life, and I think everyone should do that for theirs. And people go, oh, that sounds like a libertarian. You want to come over to my house, shoot AR-15s and smoke pot? And I go, this is where it all falls down. So, I refuse to identify myself.
You
really
make gun people sound a lot cooler all of a sudden, smoking pot. I didn't know gun people smoke pot. That makes me. I think I'm a gun person now. I think you just turned me into a gun person.
If you spend 10 years in Texas the way I did, you meet a lot of pot smoking rednecks that really like their guns and their liberties, and a lot of them are some of the best folks you could ever care to meet. And in theory, I think maybe I am a libertarian, maybe you are, but here's the weird thing. Political labels are a moving target. I think my father's first election that he voted in was for Kennedy. And at the time, Kennedy, running as a Democrat, had a hard time getting elected because he couldn't get the black vote, because at the time being a Democrat was associated with the KKK and the South, which is just, it shows you how very, very different in just one generation things have become. So I don't like labels because I feel like they remove critical thinking from our political process. And you know, I just what about your folks? What do they think of what you're doing?
I'm from a very Republican, very Catholic family, and you know, I have two brothers that are you know, where I'm at in the political spectrum, but I definitely grew up around a very Republican father, and you know, their politics were always kind of out there to be absorbed and to be listened to, and we'd always find out what upset Dad, but we were never we were just the kind of kids that never did what our dad did, you know. We kind of developed our own personality because he was kind of in his own world, and so because of that we all became, you know, liberal artists and went to liberal art schools. And but my oldest brother, he's more like my dad and Republican, and so, you know, when we get together, we try to make jokes about it, but things can get heated as well. So there's always a little it's dissension in my I don't know if dissension is the right word, but there's always like a little bit of a problem towards the end of the evening after my brothers have had a couple of beers, that things get a little bit serious, a little bit more serious than they need to be. But, you know, I think everyone's kind of, you know, I think everyone's very protective of what they have, whether it be freedoms or their stuff or their kids, and everybody wants to do what's best for them, and I understand that, and I think we're all on the same page in that regard. But some people have it harder than others, and they need to be protected, I think, and I think we have a long way to go before they truly are. And, you know, it's okay for anyone to disagree with me on that, but that's just personally how I feel, and because a lot of my fans are these people, I want to protect them and make sure that they're going to be able to live long, happy lives, because I don't really feel great about having things if others don't, and I'm not just talking about welfare or anything, I'm talking about just marriage, you know, or happiness, and or the pursuit of happiness, you know. And so I want everyone to have that stuff and make sure that that's all available to everybody at all times. Yeah. And I think we have a long way to go with that stuff, but I think this has actually been a really tough year for everybody politically, but it's also been, in my opinion, a great thing. And I definitely don't want to see anybody get hurt or anybody get killed, but it's great when we talk, and it's great when there are protests and there are people taking a knee and saying stuff and starting national dialogues. That really makes me happy. Political years and election years can be really hellish and really annoying, but at the same time, it's kind of like a fight at home. You don't want to have a fight at home, but you just found out how your spouse feels, you know. So that's great new information that I can use to make my life better. And so I actually like that we're all talking, and we're, you know, if it's all, as long as it's civil. I think there's a lot of stuff that's very not civil right now, or uncivil, and that's not great to watch. It feels like gross, it's like a verbal snuff film. But you know, you just kind of have to say, I just always assume that those people are having a tough time. They're going through something really stressful that might not have to do with the issue that they're so adamant about, or so spirited or passionate about. Well, I assume that they're like having a hard time with their bills, or they're stressed out about something else, where they feel like they're being attacked. Because I don't know if any of us are being really attacked, except for the people that are being shot dead in the street, you know.
And let me ask you this: Do you think that a big sort of focus of this show is to try and bridge a bit of a divide that exists between two sets of people that are so unbelievably dug in. Like, it's like you said, people have stuff and they're protective of it. We all want to be able to have meaningful work that we do that provides a roof over our heads. And if we have kids, we want them to have a shot at a decent education and a future and all of the above. And that, I think all that stuff is universal. And if we can all kind of agree that we all want the same things, we might have radically different ideas of how to get there, then maybe we can actually talk to each other and perhaps learn something from one another and get there faster.
Yeah, I think we need a lot more barbecues and a lot less CNN and Fox News and you know, and all the talk shows we watch, and even just constantly being inundated with information on your Facebook feed or being online and stuff like that. I think the more time we spend with each other, the more we'll see that we would help each other out if we were trapped in a flooding car. You know, that's what I always think about the flooding car in my mind when I feel like, humanity is really going over the cliff. And then I'll think, no, I still feel like the worst guy, who's the most angriest racist guy at a Trump rally, is probably going to try to save a little black kid in a car that's like drowning. You know, like I still feel like there's love in all of our hearts and there's something there. And I think right now we're all being like manipulated by people like you and me.
I'm trying to manipulate people into
in a good way, into
getting along
in a good way.
No, I think so. So that's interesting. You're what besides politics aside, Republican father. What's your family make of how you've made your way in the world? You had a couple other brothers that went to liberal arts colleges.
They don't. It's not celebrated, I think, in a really big way, like you might see on somebody on a TV show, like when they have a competition, like what is it called? The Voice or the Kelly Clarkson one. I forget what it was called. American Idol. It's been that long since American Idol was on. Now we don't remember what it's called. But like you see the family supporting them and everybody's like all, huddling around them, or Jennifer Lawrence wins an Oscar and she gets hugged by, just a fleet of jocks. And I think my situation, because I'm a baby, it's like they weren't even cooking for me by the time I showed up. So they were just like kind of done with me. So my my career is an afterthought. Yeah, so I'm kind of a caboose. So there's definitely there's like a lot of I guess you could say emotional repression in my family, where we don't like say, "Oh, good job, great job, I'm so happy for you," because we're just so used to being Catholic and repressing ourselves and keeping everything inside. So we don't even know how to have a good time or a bad time, or we've numbed ourselves to such an extent that we're not really saying "Go man, go."
Really,
but that's okay.
My own comes from Catholicism.
I do, but I think my own ego is so strong, much like the sun, and it's always pushing me forward, saying, go man go, and you're great and you can do this and you're special and you belong here. And so I always have my own, but I mean, don't get me wrong, my brothers still attend my shows, my mother's very happy for me when something successful happens, but it's definitely not the kind of thing where like my mother's never seen me perform live, and my dad my dad saw me perform live, and it was a mic check, and it was just because that was the last day I saw him alive, and I was like, "Dad, will you please come check me out? Do mic check at least." Because they just, and I'll bring other rappers on tour with me, and I'll meet their family, and their family is like, "Oh, we're so happy and proud of our little rapper." Whereas I feel like, maybe if I'd gone into advertising, it might have been a little bit more acceptable.
Do you think part of the reason you work so hard and you push so hard is like fundamentally on and like, not to play amateur psychiatrist here, but
where's the music cue? Where's the music cue for this? Come on, that was the music cue. Dun dun.
Do you think that maybe you're maybe on a subconscious or conscious level, you're working so hard the way you do, not just to provide for your family and create a living for yourself, but just thinking that one day they'll be happy for me and celebrate me the way I see other rappers' parents celebrating them?
Yes, I think that would be a dream come true for me, but I don't think that's something that's going to happen in my lifetime, unfortunately.
Funkhauser. That was jacked up.
I liked it.
So really, and your mom's never come to a show?
No, and I have one brother who's an English teacher who probably listens to all the records and knows all the lyrics, and he comes to the show every time. But I think that for the most part, I think that they just didn't want me to be as successful as I wanted to be there, or be as ambitious as I ended up being, because it's kind of annoying. There's other people in the family, and they want attention and love too, and probably my demanding so much wasn't easy to deal with.
Well, MC Chris, you are an inspiration to all of us, especially those that feel like we don't necessarily fit in. You have shown us all that there is a place for each and every one of us, no matter who we are or where we're headed in life. The album, MC Chris is Dreaming, out on the 30th. The tour kicks off September 29th, the 10 years of touring tour. It's been a real privilege to talk to you, and I hope you come back over and over and over again.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Up a dopey, a zombie, a steampunk, you debunk with copious coffee. Freddy Krueger hates Kira, got his custom Scotty. He's not Illuminati, but he got a lot of bodies. 1, 2's come for you, 3, 4, better shut your door. 5, 6, grab a crucifix, slash your flicks, how I get my kids. 41 is Summer Brothers, no sign of Santa. For the Hathaway helpers had abandoned Amanda while repeatedly raped in a cage full of crazies. A fearsome foe was forged in the fires of Hades. The bastard bounced baby of 10,000 maniacs, maybe. He wasn't born to be a brainiac, sadist and draining. Killed a hamster with a hammer, what baffling behavior. Wait until later, when he's relishing raiders. Krueger was a cutter, kinda like Kylo. Always sort of psycho, in the ghost of Michael. Daily bits of beanies made him a partial to pain.